At only 9 months old, No Yunha was already training his mana inside a crib. Normal babies were crying for milk, but this kid was quietly building a monster-level foundation like he had rent due in the apocalypse. By the time he turned 6 and entered school, everyone thought he was just a cold little boy who did not care about friends, games, or romance. He only wanted to train alone and farm aura in peace. But when some kid started bullying a girl in front of him, Yunha finally moved. 1 second later, the bully was spinning through the air and landing on the ground like his backbone had just rage quit. The crying girl thanked him, but when Yunha looked at her properly, he realized she was not ordinary at all. Her mana was absurd, the kind of talent that could become priceless in the future. Later, his family got caught in a sudden monster accident on a bridge, and even though Yunha was still only 6 years old, he controlled mana like a veteran hunter. He split through danger without hesitation, protected his sister, and stood against a catastrophe-level monster like this was just another bad memory returning too early. Because this was not a genius child learning how to fight. This was No Yunha, the man once called undead, a berserker who lost his family, survived the end of the world, and lived only to kill monsters. So how did a 9-month-old baby become colder than grown hunters who trained their whole lives? To understand that, we have to go back to the beginning. Faded embers glow against a dark sky as the mist flower party makes its grim entrance. This isn't a team of heroes, it's a suicide squad where warriors gather specifically to find a place to die. At the heart of this group is a leader they call the undead, a man who simply cannot find the peace of the grave. We see a warrior plunging a glowing blade into a monster, purple energy surging as he pins the beast to the floor. This is our protagonist, No Yunha, a berserker player whose entire existence has been boiled down to killing monsters. Honestly, look at that expression. That's the face of a man who hasn't felt a drop of joy in decades. He's just a weapon looking for a target. A massive stone staircase spirals down into a pitch-black pit filled with glowing red eyes. This is the infamous Abyss, a dungeon so lethal that not a single person has managed to clear it until now. The title card drops like a heavy weight, signaling that we've finally reached the point of no return. Yunha stands at the edge of the darkness, his sword reflecting the dim light as he prepares to face the impossible. Suddenly, a colossal armored centipede monster erupts from the shadows, looming over a horde of orcs and trolls. It's a literal wall of meat and malice waiting to crush him. Most people would freeze up or run, but you can tell Yunha is just waiting for the first one to get within range. Yunha's boots click against the stone as a chilling narration reveals that this is where his 32 years of life finally come to an end. His eyes snap open, glowing a feral red as he lunges forward with every ounce of strength he has left. The scene turns into a chaotic blur of purple and blue slashes, his sword carving through the monster tide in a beautiful, violent dance. He's fighting like a man possessed, pushing his body way past its limits for one final stand. But then, the momentum snaps. With a final, heavy thud, Yunha's strength gives out and he collapses face-first onto the cold stone floor. It's a gut-wrenching sight to see him fall like that. After all that struggle, is he really just going to die here alone in the dark? A faint purple glow flickers across the hilt of a sword as a ragged breath escapes. Yunha is teetering on the edge of consciousness, the silence of the room feeling heavy and final. But then, his eyes snap wide open in a moment of pure, raw realization. Something is moving in the shadows, and it's fast. A sickening, wet crunching sound suddenly rips through the air, vibrating right through his bones. Seriously, that sound is the stuff of nightmares. It's the sound of something hungry getting much, much closer. Yunha throws his head back and lets out a soul-shaking scream of "Iowa" as he puts everything into one final strike. He's not just fighting for his life anymore, he's fighting with the weight of his entire traumatic past fueling his muscles. In an instant, a massive pillar of light explodes from the ground, blinding and absolute. The world turns into a void of pure white and fading purple as the energy peaks. It's so intense you can almost feel the heat through the screen. You have to wonder, is this a miracle? Or is he just burning out his soul for one last hit? Blood splatters across the frame as a monster's maw is torn open in a spray of crimson. From the center of the light, Yunha stands back up, draped in a terrifyingly dark purple energy that feels almost alive. He looks like he stepped out of a legend, a warrior who simply refused to stay down in the dirt. But the celebration is cut short as a gargantuan, muscle-bound titan steps into view, its presence filling the entire room. This thing is massive, even by the crazy standards of this world. Just when he finds his second wind, a literal hurricane of a monster shows up to stop him. The very ground cracks and groans under the weight of the beast's spiked, heavy footsteps. This creature is a walking mountain of meat and malice, its jaw hanging open as it screams a challenge that shakes the very walls of the chamber. But then we see Yunha's eyes, they're glowing with a predatory red light that matches the monster's own bloodlust. He's gritting his teeth, his hand locked onto his blade with a grip that won't break. This isn't a struggle for survival anymore, it's a straight-up death match. The real question is, does he actually have enough left in the tank to kill a god? Yunha drives his glowing sword straight into the beast's gnashing maw, the light of his blade illuminating rows of jagged, yellowed teeth. The monster doesn't even flinch, instead biting down on the energy blade until the light starts to crack and shatter between its jaws like glass. Talk about a grip of death, this thing is a literal nightmare. A massive shockwave erupts from the point of impact, sending sparks and debris flying as the two forces push against each other. Blood sprays across the chamber in a violent arc, painting the walls in a visceral, jagged mess of red. It's a total bloodbath, and honestly, I'm starting to worry there won't be enough left of Unha to even celebrate if he wins. Unha is sent skidding backward across the stone, his heels carving deep ruts into the ground as a thick trail of blood follows him. He collapses into a heavy crouch, gasping for air while his own blood pools around his boots in the darkness. You can see his hands shaking. Can his body even handle another second of this much pressure? But then, Unha forces himself to stand, his eyes burning with a predatory red light that cuts through the rising smoke. He reignites his sword, the blade glowing with a fierce, cold blue energy that hums with absolute killing intent. He's going for broke now, and the crazy part is, he looks more dangerous the closer he gets to death. The beast lunges forward with a deafening roar, but Unha meets it head-on, moving with a burst of speed that defies his injuries. A blinding explosion of blue lightning tears through the air as they collide in the center of the room. This is it, the final exchange where one of them isn't walking away. Unha plunges the blade deep into the creature's throat, purple energy bursting from the wound as the beast's life force begins to leak out. With one last wet thud, the massive creature collapses into the blood-soaked floor, finally silenced. But as Unha stands over the corpse, breathing like a man whose lungs are on fire, we have to ask, how much more of his soul did he just trade for this victory? Unha's shoulders heave as he gasps for air, staring down at the absolute carnage surrounding him. His entire unit, the Mist Flower Party, lies cold on the stone floor, their lives snuffed out in what feels like a heartbeat. He looks around, his voice trembling as he asks if anyone is still alive, but the suffocating silence that follows is the only answer he gets. It's devastating to watch, man. You can see the exact moment the weight of being the sole survivor starts to crush his soul. A blood-stained sword plunges into the floor with a wet, heavy splash, sending a crimson spray across the cold ground. Unha isn't just physically exhausted, he's drowning in the reality that he's completely alone in this nightmare. Every drop of blood on that blade is a reminder of the friends he couldn't save and the family he already lost. Honestly, it makes you wonder, how much more can one person actually take before they just break? But then, something shifts in his gaze, and Unha grits his teeth as a dark, murderous resolve takes over. He looks toward the inner sanctum and declares that it doesn't matter who's left, because he's going to finish this and kill the boss by himself. Just look at those eyes, they aren't red from crying, they're glowing with a level of spite that would make a demon flinch. He's officially moved past grief and straight into a suicidal thirst for vengeance. Suddenly, a massive, ancient stone door carved with the face of a snarling beast begins to groan open. As the heavy slab shifts, a blinding, eerie light spills out from the chamber beyond, swallowing Unha's silhouette as he walks forward. It's like the dungeon itself is opening its maw to swallow him whole. You've got to admire the guts it takes to walk into that light when you know only death is waiting on the other side. Unha steps into the room and is immediately hit by a darkness so thick he can't even see his own hand. He whispers to himself that he's blind in this void, yet he can feel a pressure, something massive, ancient, and hungry, looming just inches away. And then, the tension snaps as a single, giant red eye flashes open in the dark, locked right onto him. This is it, guys. He's face to face with the monster that started all of this. But the real question is, can a man who's already half dead actually kill a nightmare? A blinding white shockwave erupts as the protagonist is launched backward with bone-shattering force. He's completely airborne, his sword spinning out of reach as the impact ripples through his entire frame. Seeing him tossed around like a total ragdoll really shows you just how outclassed he is right now. The pressure is so intense that the debris around him is literally disintegrating before he even hits the ground. It's hard to stay hyped when our guy is getting handled this easily, but the sheer scale of this attack is insane. The monster follows up with a heavy strike that sends a fresh spray of blood across the cracked stone floor. Our warrior takes a direct hit to the chest, his armor buckling inward as he's slammed down into a massive crater. You can practically hear his ribs snapping under that weight, and honestly, it's a miracle he's even conscious. He's coughing up a terrifying amount of blood, and the monster isn't even breaking a sweat yet. This isn't a battle anymore, it's just a straight-up execution in the dark. Slumped against a cold, stone pillar, the warrior looks up with a bloody, desperate grin as he realizes the truth. He admits that the ruler of the abyss is way too strong, that it's physically impossible for any human of this age to win. He's just sitting there in a pool of his own blood, accepted the fact that he's dying to a boss monster. It's that heavy, gut-punch moment where the hero finally hits his limit. But you have to wonder, is this really how his revenge story ends? A girl's scream suddenly cuts through the silence, and we see someone desperately lunging toward his broken body. It's Lee Yu-jong, and she's absolutely sobbing as she places her hands on his chest, igniting a bright, flickering blue light. Our MC's eyes go wide because he can't believe she's still alive, let alone trying to heal him in the middle of this disaster. The way she's clutching him while the world falls apart, man, the emotional weight here is just hitting different. His vision is fading and his eyes are barely staying open, but he manages to look up at her one last time. With blood staining his teeth, he chokes out a final command for her to just hurry up and run away. He knows he's a goner, and the last thing he wants is for her to die right beside him. But looking at the determination in her eyes, you just know there's no way she's leaving him behind. Will her magic be enough to pull him back from the brink, or are they both about to be erased? The sister screams at the top of her lungs that she's going to save him, even though his wounds are clearly fatal. The light around her hands is flickering with desperation, but the internal voice in her head is cold, reminding her that he should already be dead. Eunha looks up with a single, tear-filled eye, realizing that his survival up to this second is nothing short of a miracle. He's barely a person anymore, just a collection of broken bones and dried blood. Honestly, looking at him, you have to wonder how he's even still conscious. Blood pours from Eunha's mouth as he prepares for his life to end, thinking back on the vows he made to himself. Suddenly, visions of the women who cared for him start flashing through his fading mind like a reel of better days. He sees a beautiful healer looking down with a gentle smile, worried about leaving her partner all alone in this world. Then there's a white-haired woman who calls him a brat but clearly has no lingering attachments other than his safety. It's like his whole life is passing before his eyes, and it's honestly just gut-wrenching to watch. The sister's voice cuts through his dark thoughts once more, vowing that she will never let him die. She mentions the possibility of turning back time, and you can see the sheer, terrifying determination in her eyes. Her hand starts to glow with a blinding, divine radiance as she commits to saving him, no matter the price she has to pay. She's throwing every ounce of her soul into this one final, forbidden prayer. But what kind of cost is the universe going to extract for a miracle of this scale? A colossal pillar of golden light erupts from their position, tearing through the sky and completely shattering the darkness. The sheer scale of the power is insane, shaking the very foundation of the ruins and swallowing everything in sight. As the energy overflows, the screen fades into a sea of floating gold particles and the soft whisper of his name. Everything is gone in a flash of blinding light. Did she actually manage to rewrite fate, or did they both just get erased by the weight of that magic? Two blurry, shadowy figures lean over a wooden crib while a tiny, lion-shaped rattle makes a soft clicking sound. A man whispers to a woman that the baby is still sleeping, but then the figures suddenly come into sharp focus as they realize he's awake. It's a perspective we haven't seen yet, the world through the eyes of a newborn looking up at the world. Honestly, the atmosphere here is so quiet it's almost unsettling after all that carnage we just witnessed. A wide shot reveals a small baby lying in a crib placed on top of those classic, colorful puzzle piece foam mats. Eunha is panicking internally, asking himself if this is some kind of cruel deathbed hallucination or a final flashback. Then, a man with messy hair leans down with a huge, goofy grin, shouting that he's Eunha's dad. My heart just sank. He's hearing his father's voice for the first time since that horrific night years ago. A woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile reaches her hand down, and a tiny, pudgy baby hand reaches up to grab her finger. Eunha's internal monologue shifts from confusion to pure, shivering shock as he feels the physical warmth of her skin. The realization hits him like a freight train. This isn't some fading dream or a spirit world. This is a real, physical reality that he can actually touch. Pure white light explodes across the screen as Eunha tries to flex his new, tiny muscles and move his limbs. He confirms the impossible. He can move his body at will, which means he definitely didn't die in those ruins. We get a quick, haunting flash of his older sister's face from the future, covered in blood and tears as she activated her final skill. Man, the contrast between that bloody nightmare and this warm, sunlit room is enough to give anyone whiplash. The young versions of his parents smile down at him, laughing together about how the baby is the splitting image of his father. It finally clicks for Eunha. His sister's miracle skill was so broken it actually rivaled the gods and turned back the clock. He's staring at the parents he spent his whole life mourning, and you can just feel the sheer emotional weight of this second chance. But wait, if he's back here as a baby, does he have to watch everything happen all over again, or can he actually change their fate this time? A haunting image of his parents lying in a pool of their own blood flashes through his mind. In his previous life, he lived every single second fueled by nothing but pure, unadulterated hatred for the monsters that did this. But now, he's reaching a tiny, chubby hand toward the light, clenching it into a tight fist with a gaze that is way too intense for an infant. Seriously, seeing a baby with the eyes of a cold-blooded killer is a total trip, but it shows his resolve hasn't faded one bit. The title, Real Life Player, slams onto the screen as his new life officially kicks off. He's lying on a play mat in a ridiculous mouse-eared onesie, staring at the ceiling with a look of utter frustration. He realizes that even though he has the memories of a top-tier warrior, his current body is basically a useless potato that can't even crawl. It's the ultimate irony. He knows how to save the world, but he can't even reach for his own pacifier yet. He focuses all his willpower into his small limbs, trying to force his muscles to actually obey him for once. He's finally becoming active, which in baby terms means he's attempting the most legendary feat of his new existence. With a massive struggle and a tiny grunt, he successfully rolls over onto his stomach. You'd think this is a small win, but for a guy trying to prevent a massacre, this is the first step toward reclaiming his power. A young girl with a massive smile leans over him, cheering at the top of her lungs for his big achievement. This is Unha, his older sister, and she looks so full of life here that it actually hurts to watch. The crazy part is, our MC realizes his memories of her are weirdly blurry, way more than the memories of his parents. It's like his brain tried to bury the person who sacrificed the most for him, which makes this second chance even more heavy. Suddenly, a vivid, soul-crushing memory of a young, crying Unha clutching him in a dark room cuts through the piece. This is the day they lost everything, and she's holding him so tight it's like she's trying to shield him from the entire world. She leans in, trembling, about to whisper something that changed him forever. But as he stares at her young face now, you have to wonder, what were those final words she said before the monsters broke through the door? Tiny Unha pulls off a perfect flip on the playmat. His older sister is absolutely ecstatic, clapping and cheering like he just won a world championship. He realizes in this moment just how much she's centered her entire world around him. It's honestly heartwarming, but knowing the tragedy he carries, it feels like a bittersweet memory he's desperately clinging to. Unha explains that mana is literally everywhere, melted into the very air they breathe. He admits that in his previous life, he was basically a mana-starved warrior with almost zero natural talent. Now that he's regressed, he's determined to turn his body into a sponge for every drop of power he can find. It's a smart move, but can a baby's body really handle that kind of pressure? Unha looks up at his sister and suddenly sees the world in a different light. She isn't just a normal girl, she's radiating an absolutely insane, overwhelming amount of raw mana. He's completely stunned, watching this blue aura pulse around her like a literal storm. It's terrifying because, in this world, that kind of power is a double-edged sword that cuts both ways. A shot of the sister picking him up reveals the dark truth: mana concentration disorder. If she doesn't learn to vent all that energy, it'll eventually consume her and destroy her body from the inside out. Unha realizes his mission has changed. He has to save her from her own power before the clock runs out. But while he's planning her survival, she's just happily trying to help him take his first steps. The contrast here is just wild. A title card jumps the timeline forward to when Unha is finally 4 years old. He's rocking a blue hoodie now, looking way more focused and intense than any toddler should. He's spending more time outside, and his sister is proudly introducing him to her friends at the local park. It looks like a normal, peaceful childhood, but you can see it in his eyes. He's already preparing for a war they don't even know is coming. But wait, if he's already this strong at 4, what happens when the first real monster shows up? The protagonist stands by as his sister beams with local popularity. She's the neighborhood star, loved by everyone from the kids to the adults. Honestly, having a sister this charismatic is like living in the shadow of a literal sun. Suddenly, a feisty girl with reddish-pink hair named Kim Minji storms up and calls out to him. This girl looks like she's about to start a playground war right then and there. Minji demands to know why he's even at the park, looking totally annoyed by his presence. Our guy just deadpans that he was forced to come, which, big surprise, was definitely the wrong answer. She explodes, screaming her full name at him like she's got a massive point to prove. Man, even as a kid, his social life is just one giant, loud headache. The local kids gather around the checkered playground tiles to pick their game for the afternoon. They decide on a high-stakes round of cops and robbers since the group is big enough for a real chase. But just look at his face, he's thinking this is the most childish thing in the world. Can you really blame him? Mentally, he's a 36-year-old warrior trapped in a 4-year-old's body, forced to play tag. His sister leans in close, her eyes sparkling as she offers to teach him the complex rules of the game. She treats it like a grand adventure, totally oblivious to her brother's massive internal identity crisis. And just like that, his icy warrior heart melts a little because seeing her smile makes the total embarrassment worth it. It's a sweet moment, but it makes you wonder, how long can a piece this fragile actually last? The sky turns a deep, fiery orange as the sun begins to dip below the city buildings. The two siblings walk home through the quiet alleyways, their silhouettes looking like they spent the whole day rolling in the mud. He's grumbling about being covered in dirt, but his sister just turns back with a radiant, pure smile and asks if he had fun. It's the perfect, warm memory, but in a world like this, those are usually the ones that hurt the most when they're ripped away. A low, guttural growl echoes from the darkness as a beast's maw drips with saliva. Unha and his sister are cornered in a dim alley, staring up at a nightmare made of fur and teeth. You can feel the temperature drop just looking at them. A massive, multi-eyed wolf monster looms over the siblings, its shadow swallowing them whole. This isn't some playground bully. This is a literal death sentence for a couple of kids. Honestly, it's a miracle they haven't collapsed from the sheer killing intent. Eunha's sister trembles violently, tears streaming down her face as she pulls him into a desperate hug. She chokes out that it's okay and promises she will be the one to protect him. She's terrified out of her mind, yet her first instinct is still to be his shield. The screen fades into a tense silence before a single, sharp word cuts through the fear, no. Eunha looks up, his expression shifting from a scared child to something much colder and more calculated. The question is, where did that sudden chill come from? Eunha steps forward, his small frame moving with a heavy, rhythmic weight that doesn't belong to a toddler. He reflects on how, in his past life, he was pathetic, just a helpless boy trembling in his sister's embrace. He's clearly carrying the weight of a lifetime of regrets right now. His sneaker skids against the pavement as he plants his feet, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. He makes a silent, ironclad vow that in this life, he is the one who will do the protecting. Just look at those eyes, he's not looking at a monster, he's looking at prey. But can a child's body actually handle the power he's about to unleash? Jagged pillars of electric blue mana erupt from Eunha's tiny frame, shattering the silence of the alleyway. He isn't just throwing a tantrum, he's venting the concentrated killing intent of a warrior who's survived the literal apocalypse. Seeing this level of raw, unfiltered power coming from a kid in a hoodie is honestly enough to give anyone goosebumps. The predatory wolf's eyes go wide as it realizes it just made the biggest mistake of its life. It lets out a pathetic whimper, its paws scrambling against the pavement as it flees into the dark. It's official, Eunha's aura is so heavy that even monsters would rather face a seasoned hunter than stay near him. Talk about a total mood shift. The blue light slowly dissipates into embers, leaving Eunha standing there with a calm, almost bored expression. He glances back at his stunned sister and gives her a reassuring, cocky little smile, telling her not to worry because he's strong. The transition from apex predator to cute little brother is so fast it'll give you whiplash. But can he really keep this secret forever? Instead of being terrified, his sister is absolutely losing it with excitement, her eyes turning into literal stars as she sparkles. She's all over him, asking if that was mana and begging him to teach her how to be that cool. She's basically his first official disciple, and she has no idea her brother is actually a regressed war veteran. Eunha just sighs and scratches the back of his head, looking completely overwhelmed by her infectious energy. He figures he might as well start her training early since the world isn't getting any safer. She lets out a triumphant hee-hee, looking like she just won the lottery. But let's be real, if his training is anything like his past life, his sister is in for a very rude awakening. I mean, can a normal kid even survive what he has planned? Eunha runs through the sunset-drenched streets, tightly gripping his sister's hand as they rush home. He tells her they need to hurry because their mother is likely worried sick, but his expression is far too serious for a kid. Suddenly, the warmth of the moment is shattered by a horrific memory, his entire family lying dead in a pool of blood. This was the massacre that destroyed his world in his past life when he was only 6 years old. He stares at the city skyline with burning resolve, vowing to do whatever it takes to prevent that nightmare from happening again. It's honestly heartbreaking seeing a toddler carry the weight of a blood-soaked future. Inside their room, a small toy top spins violently on the floor, wreathed in a flickering blue mana aura. Eunha is actually using toys to put his sister through basic magic training, acting like a tiny, strict drill sergeant. He lectures her, explaining that she needs to apply equal strength in the same direction to maintain a perfect balance. However, as he watches her struggle, he realizes she has a major problem. She has massive mana reserves, but zero talent for controlling them. It's like having a nuclear reactor with no off switch. The sister's eyes spark with competitive fire as she winds up her arm, shouting that she'll definitely prove him wrong. She puts everything she has into the next attempt, and the result is a total disaster. A massive explosion of blue energy erupts from her hands. The top turns into a glowing blue projectile, screaming through the air and ricocheting off the furniture like a stray bullet. She panics, chasing the out-of-control toy while Eunha just watches the chaos with a dry look on his face. He notes to himself that she still has a very long way to go before she's ready for what's coming. You have to wonder, though, if her raw power is already this high, what kind of monster is she going to become once she actually learns to aim? An awards ceremony glimmers on the television screen as the host gives a humble speech. Down on the living room couch, Eunha is squeezed in between his parents and his sister, looking like the picture-perfect suburban family. It's a surreal sight, seeing a man who fought through a literal apocalypse just chilling in his pajamas. You have to wonder if he even knows how to relax anymore. His sister leans in close, teasing him about how he doesn't have to go to kindergarten. Apparently, Eunha managed to dodge that bullet by whining and throwing a fit until his parents gave in. To everyone else, he's just a stubborn kid, but in his head, he's dying of cringe at the thought of being stuck in a room with actual toddlers. Imagine being a legendary warrior and having to take a mandatory nap time. Yeah, I'd throw a tantrum too. The TV cuts to two news anchors standing in front of a massive digital clock. They announce that there's only 1 minute left until the end of the year, and the excitement in their voices is electric. Everyone is celebrating the new chapter of history, but Eunha's eyes stay sharp. He knows exactly what this new chapter actually looks like, and spoiler alert, it's not fireworks and champagne. The broadcast begins to recap the discovery of mana, showing humans harnessing glowing blue energy for the first time. It looked like a miracle at first, a gift from the heavens that would change the world forever. But as the mana gathered, something else was stirring in the shadows. Humans were so busy playing with their new toys that they didn't realize they were basically ringing a dinner bell for monsters. The screen flickers with horrifying images of burning cities and colossal beasts tearing through the streets. This was the end of a century, a massacre that wiped out 30% of Korea's entire population in a single night. This is the trauma that defines Eunha's world, a world where the monsters didn't just come out of nowhere, they were born from the very power humanity tried to claim. The question is, now that he's back at the start, how many of those millions can he actually save? Massive monster claws tear through the city skyline. People are forced to live in constant fear as these nightmares appear out of nowhere, turning every street into a potential graveyard. It's a terrifying new reality where the old laws just don't apply anymore. Powerful figures in suits look down with sinister smiles. A new hierarchy is born where the wealthy try to buy safety while new, superpowered forces emerge to claim authority. Honestly, seeing these guys thrive while the rest of the world burns is just sickening. Darkness looms over a desolate, crumbling landscape. Even as the situation finally stabilized, the damage was already done and the scars were deep. You can just feel the weight of everything that was lost in those first few days. Cities sit isolated, completely cut off from one another. Areas left behind have no choice but to wait for the monsters to finish them off. It's pure, unfiltered despair, like the world is just holding its breath for the final blow. A bright, golden light pierces through the pitch-black void. Amidst all that hopelessness, a small flame of hope is finally lit. This is the moment everything starts to change for the survivors. A woman in an elegant, glowing gown descends from above. This is the legendary Lim Jie-yul, a presence so divine it feels like the very air is purifying itself. Finally, humanity has someone who can actually fight back against the dark. A young girl looks up with wide, shimmering eyes. She's completely starstruck, whispering about how pretty the savior is. It's a rare, heart-wrenching moment of beauty in a world that's been nothing but ugly and blood-soaked. Goddess Lim Jie-yul stands tall, radiating power and grace. She was actually a famous actress before the world went to hell, but now she's the first-generation goddess protecting Korea. Talk about an insane career change, right? Glowing text describes her ability to stop mana from going rampant. She possesses the white grace, a gift that makes her the ultimate shield for the country. Without her, there wouldn't even be a Korea left to fight for. Elite players stand in formation beneath a grand, traditional temple. These are the players who protect the altar, eventually becoming the swords of Korea. They look heroic, but the politics behind these groups are a total minefield. Shadowy warriors stand ready with their weapons drawn in the dim light. This is the birth of the clan system that will eventually dominate every aspect of life. It's a power struggle just waiting to explode into something much worse. Eunha sits back with a bored expression, resting his chin on his small hand. He's thinking about how these heroes eventually prioritize their clans over the people. He knows exactly how this story plays out, and he's planning to rewrite the script. A glowing blue chalice sits on a cold marble floor, radiating an intense, ancient energy. This is the moment Lim Jie-yul is officially named as one of the 12 thrones, the elite tier of players who rule the New World Order. These individuals didn't just rely on their swords, they manipulated the Mana Management Bureau's authority and used their clan's influence to cement their status. Honestly, seeing how much power is concentrated in just a dozen people's hands is actually terrifying. Mysterious silhouettes stand under blinding spotlights, looking like gods descending to Earth. These are the 12 people who hold the fate of humanity in their palms. Then, the camera focuses on Lim Jie-yul, looking absolutely regal with her hair pinned up and a gaze that could pierce through steel. It's hard to believe someone who looks this refined is basically a walking weapon of mass destruction. But you have to wonder, is she really the hero everyone thinks she is? Lim Jie-yul extends her hands toward a floating orb of pure, swirling blue mana. She closes her eyes, whispering a desperate prayer for the strength to protect her country. Suddenly, the orb erupts, sending a massive shockwave of light through the ceremonial hall. The screen practically vibrates with the intensity of that energy. Seriously, the sheer scale of her mana is on a completely different level than anything we've seen so far. The entire city skyline is suddenly illuminated by a haunting blue glow coming from the sky. It looks like the atmosphere itself is being rewritten by Jie-yul's power. A reporter on the ground, wearing heavy headphones, looks up in total disbelief as she broadcasts the event. She shouts that a cocoon is unfolding right above them. This is the big question. Is this light a shield meant to save them, or is it the start of another nightmare? Back in the living room, Eunha's sister jumps up and sprints toward the veranda with a look of pure excitement. She's just a kid caught up in the magic of the moment, leaving her parents and Eunha behind on the couch. She leans over the balcony railing, her eyes reflecting the brilliant blue light from the sky. But look at Eunha's face as he follows her. He's not impressed. He knows exactly what this cocoon means for the future, and the look in his eyes says the real trouble is only just beginning. A blinding blue aurora pulses from the streets below, washing the entire city in a ghostly glow. Eunha's sister leans over the balcony railing, her face lit with a hope that feels almost too fragile for this world. She whispers that they'll finally be able to live in peace now, genuinely believing the nightmare is over. It's a beautiful thought, really, but look at Eunha. He's just standing there in the shadows of the doorway, his silence speaking volumes. To him, this isn't a miracle or a sign of peace, it's the beginning of a much longer, bloodier countdown. His mother closes her eyes tightly, pressing her hands together in a desperate, thankful prayer. She's thanking a goddess for their survival, and she isn't the only one caught in the delusion. Every single balcony in the apartment complex is filled with neighbors doing the exact same thing, bowing their heads to a savior they've never met. His father joins in, his expression finally relaxing after what must have been months of pure terror. Seeing your parents so relieved when you know the truth, that's the real torture. They think they've been saved, but Eunha knows they've just been moved to a different kind of chessboard. The sister reaches out, nudging Eunha with a smile and asking him to join the family prayer. But Eunha's eyes, man, they're cold, like he's looking right through the sky and into a literal nightmare. He thinks to himself that God doesn't exist in this world, and the vision that flashes in his mind proves it. A massive, bone-chilling dragon incinerates a city in his memory, turning screaming people into nothing but ash and shadows. This goddess, the people are thanking. Eunha knows she's not a savior. In a world of monsters and hunters, relying on a deity is just a fast way to get yourself killed. The brilliant blue light suddenly streaks upward and vanishes into the atmosphere, leaving the world behind. The sky isn't glowing anymore, it's turning back into that heavy, suffocating darkness we've grown to fear. Despite the shadow falling over them again, the sister just keeps smiling, offering one final wish for her family to stay happy. She's wishing for a normal life in a world that's about to break in half. It makes you wonder, can Eunha actually protect that innocent smile, or is he just waiting for the next disaster to strike and tear it all away? The peace is temporary, and the real fight is just over the horizon. Eunha closes his eyes with a gentle, sincere smile. He makes a silent plea to the universe, wishing for nothing more than a happy life with his family this time around. It's honestly heartbreaking when you remember the carnage he's already lived through. But then, the screen fades to a stark white background with the words, Goddess Calendar, appearing. Time skips forward, and we see that Eunha has officially turned 6 years old. Finally, the prep work is over and the real story begins. A dark, skeletal monster with piercing red eyes stares out from the void. The narration drops a heavy truth. The exact incident that caused Eunha to lose his family in his first life is rapidly approaching. That's the ticking clock right there. How much time does he actually have to get stronger? A massive, purple-hued monster limb crushes the ground, looking like something straight out of a nightmare. The weight of his past trauma is looming over his peaceful childhood like a physical shadow. Every happy moment he has right now feels like it's on borrowed time. Bright sunlight streams over a modern building under a clear blue sky. Having reached the age of 6, Eunha officially enrolls in kindergarten to maintain his cover as a normal child. Imagine being a legendary warrior and having to go back to learning your ABCs. The patience this guy has is insane. A teacher with glasses and a pink vest smiles warmly at the camera. Teacher Taeyo introduces Eunha to the Always Green Pine class, trying to make him feel welcome. She has absolutely no idea she's talking to a man who's seen the literal end of the world. Eunha stands at the front of the room with a completely deadpan, done with life, expression. He bluntly introduces himself and his age to the room, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. He looks so out of place among the bubbles and crayons that it's actually kind of hilarious. A top-down view shows dozens of kids sitting on the floor, already whispering about the weird new kid. The entire class is staring at him because he seems way too serious for a 6-year-old. You can tell he's already completely over this whole childhood social experiment. Eunha smirks internally while looking down at the toddlers surrounding him. He thinks to himself that he has zero interest in playing house or making friends with literal babies. Talk about an ego, but honestly, can you blame him after what he's seen? Suddenly, a girl with red hairpins, Kim Minji, points a finger directly at his face. She screams at him, demanding to know why he's in their class with that attitude. And just like that, Eunha's plan for a quiet school life is already going up in flames. But can he actually keep his cool against a feisty 6-year-old? Unha stares back at the screaming girl with an expression that says he's already done with this day. Minji is absolutely losing it because he used her nickname, and she's not letting it slide. Before a full-blown toddler war breaks out, the teacher rushes in, sweating buckets while waving her hands to keep the peace. She quickly announces that everyone has free time until lunch, hoping to distract the tiny mob. Man, being a kindergarten teacher, that's the real S-rank survival mission right there. A group of kids swarms around Unha, peppering him with questions about whether he even knows how to do basic math. The teacher watches him from a distance, breathing a sigh of relief when she realizes he isn't the one causing the chaos. Unha finally manages to slip away from the interrogation, looking like he just finished a marathon. He's physically exhausted just from 5 minutes of social interaction. Honestly, a battlefield is probably less draining than trying to explain addition to a 6-year-old. Unha spots the children's books corner and heads straight for it. He figures if he can just hide behind some shelves, he might actually survive the morning without his ears bleeding. It's the only place in the room that isn't ringing with high-pitched screaming. He reaches for a book, deciding that reading The Little Penguin is a small price to pay for 5 minutes of silence. It's a bit pathetic for a legendary warrior, but hey, peace is peace. A small girl with a pink bow is already tucked away at a table, silently focused on her own book. Unha plops down across from her, and for a brief moment, the world actually feels normal. They sit there together in the soft afternoon light, two kids just reading in their own little bubble. Unha rests his chin on his hand, looking totally bored but content to let the clock tick down. He's finally found his zen moment, but in this life, quiet moments usually mean a storm is coming. A heavy shadow falls over the girl's book as a rough voice calls out, "Hey." A trio of kids moves in, led by a boy with a bandage on his nose and a permanent scowl. This is Choi Yunhyuk and his little crew of playground enforcers, Ma Bangjin and Yun Seongjin. Yunhyuk sneers at the girl, mockingly asking what's so fun about reading, again. And just like that, Unha's peaceful morning is officially over, but the real question is, how long can a former warrior watch a bully play tough before he decides to show him what real fear looks like? Lee Yunhyuk looks down with a smug, self-satisfied grin. He isn't just a brat, he's the kind of bully who genuinely enjoys making others feel small. Without a second thought, he snatches a pink ribbon right off a young girl's head, mocking it for being tacky. The poor girl is devastated, crying out that it was a gift from her father, but that only makes Yunhyuk want to ruin it more. He starts tossing the ribbon to his friends, playing a cruel game of keep away while the girl begs for it back. Honestly, watching a kid act like a low-tier villain is just painful to see. You have to wonder, how much longer is our MC going to let this slide? A close-up of Yunhyuk's mocking face shows he's having the time of his life. He thinks he's the undisputed king of this playground, and nobody can touch him. But then the camera shifts to Unha, who's just sitting at his desk with his head in his hand, looking completely unimpressed. He mutters under his breath that the whole situation is just childish. And he's right, to a former warrior who's seen the end of the world, this is like watching toddlers fight over a piece of lint. The crazy part is the look in Unha's eyes. He's not just annoyed, he's officially done playing nice. Yunhyuk freezes, his face twisting into a mask of pure, unbridled rage. He's clearly not used to anyone standing up to him, let alone a kid who looks as calm as Unha. He storms over, veins practically popping, and demands to know what Unha just said. But instead of backing down, Unha looks him dead in the eye and doubles down. "I said you're childish." That's the spark that blows the powder keg. Yunhyuk screams, "You bastard," and lunges forward with a wild, desperate punch. He's about to find out that attacking a regressed warrior is the biggest mistake of his life. A blur of red and green flashes across the room as Unha moves with impossible speed. It's not even a struggle, it's a masterclass in combat instincts being used on a literal child. In one fluid motion, Unha sidesteps the punch and uses Yunhyuk's own momentum to send him spiraling through the air. The bully hits the floor with a massive thud, completely neutralized before he even realized what happened. While everyone else is standing there in shock, Unha just walks over to the girl and hands her back the ribbon. "Here," he says, totally unfazed. He's reclaimed his peace, but now that he's shown a glimpse of his real strength, how will the rest of the world react to this prodigy in their midst? No. Unha stares down at a pink ribbon clutched in his small hand. He's just finished reclaiming it from the classroom bullies, looking way more exhausted than a 6-year-old should. It's a bit surreal seeing a hardened warrior's soul trapped in such a tiny, frustrated body. He glances at the other kids sobbing on the floor and just sighs, thinking he really shouldn't be taking life lessons from toddlers. Honestly, the mental drain of acting like a kid might be harder than the actual fighting. A tiny hand suddenly tugs on Unha's red sleeve, stopping him in his tracks. He turns to find the timid girl he just protected looking up at him with wide, shimmering eyes. She whispers a soft, "Thank you," for returning her precious bow, her face flushed with genuine relief. It's a quiet, heavy moment because, in her eyes, he's not just a classmate, he's a hero. You can see Eunha isn't quite sure how to handle that kind of pure, unfiltered gratitude. Eunha's eyes suddenly ignite with a sharp, piercing blue flare as he activates his mana perception. He starts scanning the room, noting that kids like Minji and Yunhyuk have slightly more mana than the average person. It's a cold, calculated move to see who actually matters in this timeline. But then, his gaze shifts back to the girl standing right in front of him. His expression hardens instantly. Why is his internal alarm suddenly going off? The girl is suddenly engulfed in a massive, roaring pillar of blue mana that dwarfs everything else in the room. This isn't just above average, it's a literal ocean of raw, terrifying power radiating from her small frame. Eunha is visibly shaken, his internal monologue dropping a damn as he witnesses the sheer scale of her energy. Seeing a kindergartner with this much latent power is like finding a nuclear reactor inside a toy box. A vision of a legendary, spear-wielding warrior flashes through Eunha's mind as he realizes her potential. She has the perfect control required to be one of the 12 thrones, the absolute peak of humanity's power. But as he stares at her, a chilling thought enters his mind. He never heard her name once in his entire previous life. If she was this talented, she should have been the most famous player on the planet. The big question is, what happened to her that caused her name to be erased from history? No. Eunha stands before the girl, handing back her precious ribbon. She's completely stunned, looking at him like he just performed a miracle. The crazy part is, Eunha isn't doing this out of the kindness of his heart. He's looking at her and thinking about how much potential she has as a future player. He reaches out, taking her hand and suggesting they become good friends. Honestly, he's basically recruiting a future elite before she even knows she's special. Talk about a pro gamer move. The scene shifts to a quiet, sunny exterior of an apartment complex. It's a peaceful day, the kind where you'd never expect the world to end. But knowing what Eunha knows, this tranquility feels almost fake. Why is it always so quiet right before everything goes to hell? We're transitioning back to his family life, but you can't help but feel like the clock is ticking. Inside the house, Eunha's mom is holding up a paper carnation with a look of pure joy. His older sister is standing there, beaming with pride and petting Eunha's head like she's the one who taught him everything. The sister even brags that her paper flower looks better than a real one. But then, look at Eunha's face, he looks like he's seeing a ghost. He's staring at her work of art and realizing she is absolutely terrible at crafts. It's a hilarious moment of sibling reality in the middle of all this tension. His mom notices that Eunha didn't just make one flower, he's actually made 3. He's standing there holding a red paper carnation, looking incredibly serious for a kid his age. This one isn't just for practice, it's for his grandmother. He flashes back to being at school, meticulously cutting the paper while all the other kids were probably just messing around. He was forced to fold these things in class, but he's turning a chore into a way to protect his family's happiness. But the big question is, will they even make it to Grandma's house? Every happy moment feels like a setup for the disaster that's looming just around the corner. We know the massacre is coming, and the car is already packed. A simple paper carnation sits tucked away in a pot. Eunha remembers how, in his past life, he used to hide these flowers in his backpack, letting his grandmother find them instead of handing them over himself. He was too shy, or maybe just too stubborn, to show any real gratitude until the day she passed away. It's a heavy regret that's been eating at him for a lifetime. This time, he's determined to make sure she knows exactly how much she means to him. A high-ranking official stands at a podium surrounded by holographic data. The goddess government makes a public announcement that they're finally opening the restricted roads so families can reunite for the holidays. They even show off a massive force of players hired to keep the paths safe from any monster threats. On the surface, it looks like a humanitarian win, but for someone who has lived through the aftermath, it feels more like a death trap. A terrifying, multi-eyed monster looms over a congested highway. This is the reality Eunha remembers, the Kraken appearing out of nowhere and turning the celebration into a literal bloodbath. In that timeline, his entire family was slaughtered on this very road. The image of those glowing red eyes reflecting off the wreckage is pure nightmare fuel. Everything he loves is about to be put on a collision course with that beast again. Young Eunha stands alone in the middle of a room, looking small and isolated. After the massacre, his maternal grandmother was the only person left in the world to take care of him. He spent those years living like a loser, his emotions completely drained while she did everything she could to support him until she died. Back then, he couldn't even visit her because the outskirts were crawling with monsters. It's clear he's carrying the weight of 2 lifetimes of grief right now. Floating text bubbles highlight the government's hollow promises of safety. Eunha tries to convince himself things might be different since the government is actually maintaining the roads this year. But then, he looks up at his parents with a look that is far too intense for a child. He calls out to them, stopping them in their tracks. You can feel the air in the room get heavy. He's about to drop a bombshell. Is he going to try and stop the trip entirely? The mother leans down, gently reminding Eunha how much he wanted to give his grandmother that handmade carnation. He looks conflicted, almost desperate, as he begs them to just go another day instead. It's a heavy plea for a child to make, but he quickly realizes he's acting too mature for his age. He clenches his fist, reminding himself that he has to play the part of a normal, selfish kid so his parents don't get suspicious. Honestly, seeing him have to lie to the people he loves just to keep them alive is a total gut punch. Eun-ha suddenly switches gears, putting on a bright, wide-eyed face and shouting about how much he wants to go to the amusement park to ride the Viking. He makes it look like a typical childhood tantrum for a fun day out. His sister, Eun-ha, takes the bait instantly, jumping up and down and screaming that she wants to go to the park too. It's a brilliant move to shift the travel plans without raising alarms. You have to hand it to him, for a kid his size, his acting skills are top tier. The father rubs the back of his neck, admitting that they've been so worried about monsters lately that they haven't given the kids a proper outing. He agrees to change the destination, and Mom immediately starts talking about packing a special lunch for the trip. While the family celebrates, the look in Eun-ha's eyes goes cold and focused. He knows he can't stop the Kraken massacre from happening to the world, but he's finally steered his family away from the epicenter. He's actually doing it. He's changing the future. The title real-life player flashes across the screen as the true stakes of his second life begin to settle in. But just as the relief starts to hit, a sharp, ringing phone cuts through the happy atmosphere like a knife. Eun-ha's expression instantly shifts from relief to pure dread as he hears the beep of a notification. His father answers the phone, his face turning pale as he asks, "My mother? Wait, did something happen to Grandma?" If the disaster is starting early, then all of Eun-ha's planning might have just been for nothing. The father's voice drops to a low, urgent whisper as he begs whoever is on the other end of the line to look after his mother. He hangs up and the silence that follows is deafening before he finally admits that Grandma isn't doing well. You can see the color drain from the mother's face as she clutches her chest in pure worry. It's one of those moments where you realize life can flip upside down in a single second. Honestly, seeing the terror in her eyes makes me wonder if the end of the century is already leaking into their lives. Eun-ha's eyes widen, flashing with a frantic, internal light as he starts calculating the timeline in his head. In his previous life, his grandmother was healthy for years, but now everything is shifting way too fast and in the wrong direction. His father looks down at him, his face full of guilt as he explains that the amusement park trip is officially off because they need to drive to her side immediately. Seeing Eun-ha standing there so still is actually heartbreaking. He isn't upset about missing out on rides. He's realizing that his very presence might be warping reality in ways he can't control. The sister, Eun-ha, calls her brother's name with a voice full of concern, sensing his mounting dread. Their mother quickly kneels down, gently taking his small hands into hers as she tries to comfort him about the cancelled trip. But the MC's internal monologue is spiraling out of control, thinking that if he tries to fix one thing, he might accidentally break 10 others. It's the ultimate curse of a regressor, the crushing fear that every step forward might actually be a step toward a different kind of grave. What if his interference is the very thing that kills them? The scene fades into a dark, suffocating void as Eun-ha questions if this second chance is just a cruel joke from the universe. He stares into the blackness, asking himself why he even came back if he's still just as powerless to save the people he loves. But then, his eyes snap back into focus, glowing with a fierce, crimson resolve that wasn't there in his past life. He realizes there is one massive difference this time around. He's not just a victim anymore. He knows what's coming, he has the mana, and he's going to tear apart anything that stands in his way. This is where the real fight begins. A tiny infant sits enveloped in a pulsing blue mana flame while his future warrior self carves through monsters below. Eun-ha hasn't wasted a single second since his regression, secretly cultivating his mana since he was a literal baby to bypass his tiny body's limits. It's honestly wild to see a toddler grinding like a top-tier ranker while everyone else thinks he's just napping. But his expression turns grim as he looks at his sister, realizing he can't talk his family out of this vacation that leads straight to a massacre. The family walks toward the bright light of the doorway, excited for their trip to visit Grandma. They're laughing and smiling, completely unaware that they are walking into a death trap. Suddenly, the vision shifts to massive, slime-covered purple tentacles writhing in a dark, suffocating mist. This is the Kraken, the legendary beast from his past life that turned the highway into a graveyard. Just looking at those things makes my skin crawl, it's pure nightmare fuel. Eun-ha's eyes ignite with a fierce blue glow as he prepares his spirit for the coming slaughter. He stands alone against the towering silhouette of the beast, a tiny speck of defiance against a mountain of muscle and hate. He isn't just planning to run, he's flat out stating that he will battle the Kraken. You have to love the sheer confidence here, even if it looks like a suicide mission. Text screens appear, breaking down the terrifying classification system used by the Mana Management Bureau to rank these nightmares. We see everything from rank 8 physical nuisances to rank 5 monsters that look like massive, armored centipedes capable of paralyzing entire cities. These aren't just animals, they're living weapons designed to dismantle human society. It really puts into perspective how outmatched humanity actually is. A colossal dragon breathes fire over a burning skyline, illustrating the rank 3 and rank 2 threats that can topple entire governments. These are the catastrophe class entities that leave nothing but ashes in their wake. But then, the screen fades to black with a final, chilling realization. The Kraken Unha is currently driving toward is a rank 3. He's a child with the body of a grade schooler, and he's about to face a monster that can destroy a country. How is he supposed to win this? Unha stares down at his desk drawer as memories of a bloody battlefield flicker through his mind. He remembers a future where these monsters were eventually demoted to rank 4 as players grew stronger, but in this current era, they are absolute harbingers of death. The soldiers in this timeline are just fodder compared to the Kraken. It's honestly terrifying to think about how many people are about to die because no one is ready for this. A lone warrior charges through a wall of roaring flames against an impossible shadow. Unha narrows his eyes, realizing he has exactly one objective: buy as much time as possible until the 12 thrones finally show up to handle the heavy lifting. He knows he isn't strong enough to slay a rank 3 calamity yet, so survival is the only victory he can aim for. He's basically gambling his life on a countdown clock. Unha's tiny hands hover over a pair of purple craft scissors and a yellow stapler on his desk. He desperately wants to grab a kitchen knife, but he knows his mother would notice it missing immediately and start asking questions he can't answer. Suddenly, a violent surge of blue mana wraps around the scissors, sharpening the energy into a lethal edge. It's wild. He's literally turning school supplies into weapons of war. The bedroom door swings open as his sister peeks in with a bright, innocent smile to tell him they're leaving. She has no idea that her cute little brother is currently armed to the teeth and preparing for a massacre. Unha instantly masks his killing intent, zipping his bag shut with a dark, heavy gaze that looks nothing like a child's. That transition from a cold-blooded warrior back to a normal kid is honestly chilling. The scene shifts to a massive highway bridge, where hundreds of cars are packed bumper to bumper under a haunting orange sunset. It looks like a typical weekend traffic jam, but Unha knows better. This isn't just a road, it's a slaughterhouse waiting to happen. Every single person in those cars is a sitting duck for what's coming. The question is, can one kid with a pair of mana-infused scissors really change the fate of an entire city? We're about to find out, because the nightmare is officially starting. Inside the car, the family settles in for the long, slow drive home. Mom notices her son's intense expression and tells him he should sleep if he's tired, but Unha just mutters that he's alright. His sister is already dozing off on his shoulder, completely oblivious to the countdown ticking away in his head. Man, seeing them this peaceful just makes the pressure on his shoulders feel 10 times heavier. The red sunset glares off the windshield as they crawl across the Songsan Bridge. Unha is staring at the asphalt, his mind racing through memories of the Kraken's first appearance in his past life. He's sweating, his eyes vibrating with a mix of fear and anticipation. Why hasn't it happened yet? The wait is honestly more agonizing than the attack itself. The city skyline looks beautiful in the twilight, but the silence is suddenly shattered. Without warning, the center of the highway erupts in a massive, bone-shaking explosion of fire and concrete. Cars are tossed into the air like they're made of paper, and the bridge begins to groan under the stress. This is it, the end of the century has officially begun. A chilling message flashes across the screen: you cannot change fate. His sister's face is paralyzed in a mask of pure shock, while his father stares through the windshield, his eyes wide with the realization that they're trapped. It's that moment of pure, helpless terror where you realize your life is no longer in your own hands. Shattered glass and debris rain down around them as the car's roof is nearly crushed by falling pillars. Unha stares up at the carnage, his eyes burning with a desperate, glowing intensity. He feels like the universe is literally laughing at his wish to protect his family, forcing him to watch the carnage all over again. How can one kid fight back when destiny itself is trying to steamroll him? A colossal, purple-segmented nightmare rises from the smoke, its massive body towering over the ruined bridge. The system identifies the threat immediately, a rank 3 disaster-class monster known as the Kraken. It's a multi-limbed, armored titan that can turn a highway into a graveyard in seconds. This is the ultimate test. Can Unha's mana-infused scissors even scratch a god of destruction like this? We're about to find out, because the fight for survival starts right now. A massive purple segmented body slams into the asphalt, turning armored cars into scrap metal in an instant. The centipede monster finally makes its move, crushing the highway like it's made of thin cardboard. It's sickening how easily those vehicles, and the people inside, are being pulverized by the sheer weight of this thing. Honestly, how do you even fight something that big? Civilians scream in pure terror while a group of armed players finally rushes toward the carnage. These warriors arrive to intercept the beast, hoping their mana-infused weapons can actually turn the tide of this slaughter. You can see the desperation in their eyes as they charge into the smoke. But looking at the scale of that monster, you have to wonder if they're just running toward their own deaths. A warrior lunges forward with a glowing blue blade, only for a massive, ear-splitting explosion to rip through the air. The front lines are immediately hit by a spray of blood and agonized screams as the monster retaliates with overwhelming force. It's brutal to watch. These guys are being treated like insects by something far higher on the food chain. Can a human blade even leave a scratch on that armor? The purple titan coils its massive, armored body through a sea of fire, wreckage, and corpses. Every single movement it makes creates more rubble, leaving absolutely no room for the survivors to find cover. The end of the century isn't just a name, it's a living nightmare that's eating the city whole. At this point, the question isn't how to win, it's how to stay alive for even one more minute. From inside their red car, the family stares out at the burning hellscape through the windshield. Eunha's father grips the steering wheel with white knuckles, telling everyone to stay calm and move carefully as they prepare to flee the vehicle. He's trying so hard to be the pillar for his family, but you can feel the sheer weight of his fear in every word. This is it. The catastrophe Eunha has been preparing for is finally here, and his family is right in the center of the kill zone. How is a toddler supposed to save them from this? Eunha and his sister look on with wide eyes as their father promises a safe evacuation if they just stay calm. He's trying his best to be the hero, but you can see the sweat beads on their mother's face as she turns around, her voice trembling while she begs the kids to move. It's that fake, parental calm we've all seen right before everything goes south. Honestly, seeing her try to hide her terror from the kids makes this feel so much more real. The family finally spills out of the car wreckage and into a literal war zone on the smoke-filled highway. But as they hit the asphalt, Eunha's sister suddenly stumbles and falls, prompting him to shout out in worry. You can tell she's not just tripping, something is physically wrong here. It's like her body just gave up the second her feet touched the ground, and in a place like this, that's a death sentence. His sister sits on the gravel, clutching her trembling legs and crying out because she literally can't get up. She's staring at her own limbs in total disbelief, tears welling up as she realizes she's becoming a burden in a moment where every second counts. This is pure psychological trauma manifesting physically. Imagine being that helpless while a giant centipede is actively turning everyone around you into a snack. Their mother desperately offers to carry Eunha so their father can help the sister, but the girl tries to put on a brave face, claiming she can walk. Even Eunha is looking at her with this intense, sharp gaze, probably calculating exactly how much time they have left before the next wave hits. She's terrified of being the reason they don't make it. It's heartbreaking to watch a child try to smile through that kind of sheer, paralyzing pain. The father scoops his daughter up anyway and starts the desperate sprint towards safety as veteran players begin to arrive on the scene. These are the high-level hunters, and they're already moving with insane speed to assess the chaos and evacuate the survivors. Seeing the pros show up should be a relief, right? But the look on Eunha's face says he knows something they don't. Eunha's internal monologue cuts through the noise, warning that they have to get off this bridge immediately before they appear. Just as the thought crosses his mind, a massive spray of blood and a violent impact tremor shake the entire highway. The centipede was just the beginning, the real monsters are finally arriving. If Eunha doesn't tap into his hidden mana right now, his family is never making it off this bridge. Eunha's father sprints across the Songsan Bridge, his muscles straining as he carries his paralyzed daughter. The kid, Eunha, looks over his shoulder and spots something dark and wet gripping the railing. They're here, he whispers, and you can just feel the air get heavy. This is the moment the escape plan starts falling apart. Scaly, blue monsters known as divers begin vaulting over the sides, clutching rusted spears. These things are only rank 7, but against terrified civilians, they're basically reapers. One of the creatures lunges forward, sinking its teeth deep into a woman's throat in a spray of crimson. Seeing that level of raw violence, it really sets the stakes for what's coming next. The question is, how many of these things are actually in the water? Hunters finally intercept the swarm, driving swords through the fishermen's heads to stop the slaughter. However, the damage is already done, and the bridge is covered in the fallen. We see a man desperately clutching a woman who's bleeding out from a massive torso wound. It's a haunting reminder that even with heroes around, not everyone is getting out of this alive. Screams echo off the metal beams as the evacuation turns into a full-blown massacre. Just when you think the divers are the main threat, a shadow the size of a skyscraper looms over the bridge. A colossal, black tentacle smashes down, crushing cars and hunters alike in a single, deafening blow. That's the Kraken, and honestly, it looks like a god of death compared to the small fries they were just fighting. Blood splatters across the frame as the bridge literally starts to crumble under the beast's massive weight. Eunha's father doesn't stop for a second, his eyes burning with a terrifying level of resolve. He shouts to his children, asking if they believe in him, before demanding they never look back. He's clearly prepared to throw his life away just to buy them a few more seconds. But can a regular man really hold off a disaster-level titan? This is getting desperate. Eunha's mother sprints through the chaos with a look of pure, unfiltered terror. Her breathing is ragged as her boots hammer against the cracked asphalt, weaving through the growing mountain of debris. Honestly, seeing her this desperate just drives home how high the stakes are right now. Massive purple segments of the Kraken slam down, flattening cars like they're made of tin foil. The beast is coiling its colossal body around the Songsan Bridge, effectively turning the entire evacuation route into a claustrophobic death trap. It's not even a fight, it's a systematic demolition of everything in its path. Eun-ha looks back over his shoulder, his eyes wide as he watches cars tumble through the air behind them. His parents are barely holding it together, with his father clutching his paralyzed sister while the mother stays glued to his side. They're physically and emotionally spent, and you can see the realization hitting Eun-ha, his family isn't going to make it at this pace. A car caught in the crossfire suddenly erupts into a violent fireball, sending a shockwave of heat across the bridge. The Kraken's movements are so heavy they're literally sparking mana-infused explosions every time it strikes the ground. It's becoming a literal hellscape of smoke and twisted metal. Can anyone even breathe in that? Two low-level guards with swords stand paralyzed as they shout that the backup is completely blocked by the raging fires. Eun-ha's eyes narrow as he overhears them. The 12 thrones, heroes they were all praying for aren't coming to save them. The realization is chilling. If someone doesn't step up right now, his entire family is about to be erased from existence. But what can a 6-year-old actually do against a rank 3 disaster? The pressure is reaching a breaking point. Eun-ha stares into the distance with a cold, knowing dread. He realizes that 12 thrones, heroes won't arrive for another 30 minutes, a delay that cost everyone their lives in his past. While the local players struggle just to keep the smaller, divers, at bay, the massive Kraken is completely uncontested. It's a slaughter waiting to happen. Seeing a 6-year-old realize that heroes aren't coming is just heavy, man. Eun-ha takes a deep, stabilizing breath to steady his racing heart. He reaches into his bag and pulls out a simple yellow utility cutter, his small hand trembling slightly. With a sharp, metallic click, he slides the blade out as a faint, menacing purple aura begins to coat the steel. He's been preparing for this exact moment since he regressed. This isn't a kid with a toy, it's a predator finally showing his teeth. The family stands paralyzed on the cracked pavement as Eun-ha steps forward. His father looks down in absolute horror, demanding to know what his son is doing. Eun-ha doesn't flinch, his eyes burning with a focus no child should ever possess. He knows that if he doesn't act, his family dies right here. You can feel the tension. His parents think he's suicidal, but he's the only one truly awake. Eun-ha glances at his unconscious sister, realizing he's the only person left who understands how to handle mana. He knows his mother is terrified, but he has to trust them to run while he provides the opening. Without another word, he bolts toward the towering disaster at a speed that defies physics. His parents' desperate screams of Eun-ha echo across the bridge as he disappears into the smoke. He's bringing a box cutter to a god fight, and honestly, I think the monster should be worried. Eun-ha grips the yellow utility cutter as mana begins to swirl around the blade like a localized storm. He doesn't wait for a plan or a miracle, immediately sprinting headfirst into the maze of abandoned cars toward the giant monster. The scale here is just soul-crushing. He looks like a tiny speck against that purple nightmare, but his eyes? They're focused on one thing, the kill. His shoes kick off the pavement with enough force to crack the road, sending him flying forward in a low-profile dash. Blue electricity flickers around his silhouette as he glides over the roofs of cars with unnatural, predatory grace. It's a complete shift in the atmosphere. 1 second he's just a kid in a crowd, and the next, he's a blur of pure, lethal mana. Honestly, it's terrifying to see a 6-year-old move with that much intent. Cold sweat beads on his forehead as he forces his young, underdeveloped circuits to mimic a high-level mobility skill from his previous life. He realizes this is the only way to bridge the gap and reach the Kraken before it turns his family into a memory. He's literally gambling his physical future for a single opening, and the look in his eyes says he's already accepted the consequences. A wide shot reveals Eun-ha as a lone spark of blue light charging straight into the looming shadow of the colossal rank 3 beast. The real-life player, title card slams onto the screen, marking the official start of a battle that shouldn't even be happening. It's a heavy moment because you realize the weight of the world is resting on the shoulders of someone who hasn't even hit his first growth spurt yet. Panicked civilians ducking behind their vehicles look up in pure shock as the boy streaks past them like a comet. A man desperately shouts that it's too dangerous to go that way, completely unaware that this child is the only person on this bridge with the guts to fight back. Imagine being that guy, watching a toddler run toward a god-level disaster while you're paralyzed by the sheer terror of it all. The entire world suddenly disappears into a blinding, silent flash of absolute white light. Everything, the bridge, the monster, the screams, is swallowed whole by a sudden, violent surge of energy. We're left staring at a blank screen, and the silence is deafening. Did Eun-ha actually land a hit, or did his body just give out under the pressure? A tiny hand grips the yellow utility cutter as the words, mana coding, flare to life in a digital blue glow. Eun-ha isn't just holding a school supply anymore, He's channeling his previous life's mastery into that flimsy metal blade to transform it into a lethal tool. Blue mana particles swarm around his fingers like a localized storm as he leaps into the abyss without a hint of hesitation. Then, his small sneakers land with a heavy thud right on the Kraken's slimy, armored back. Seriously, the absolute guts on this kid to treat a rank 3 disaster like a jungle gym is just insane. Unha transforms into a blur of violet and blue, dashing across the monster's scales with the terrifying precision of a professional killer. He swings the glowing cutter with everything his 6-year-old body has, his eyes locked on the beast's vitals. Sparks fly and metal screeches as the mana-edged blade grinds against the monster's reinforced hide, leaving a trail of burning light in its wake. You can practically feel the heat from the friction, and honestly, it's a miracle the cheap plastic handle is even holding together under this much pressure. The Kraken finally realizes there's a predator on its back, and its rows of red eyes flare with a sudden, murderous hunger. It lets out a deafening, guttural screech that shakes the very foundations of the Songsan Bridge, signaling that it's done playing around. Unha is suspended in the air for a heart-stopping moment, looking like a helpless doll compared to the titan pouncing on him from below. Then, thud. The impact is so violent it rattles the frame, and your heart just sinks seeing him take a direct hit like that at such a young age. The blue mana blade suddenly shatters into 1,000 glowing shards, unable to withstand the Kraken's sheer mass and density. Unha is left completely defenseless as the beast's maw closes in, but instead of retreating, he lets out one final, desperate surge of raw, unrefined power. A violent explosion of orange and white energy erupts from his small frame, swallowing the monster and the bridge in a blinding supernova of mana. The screen goes completely white, leaving us with one terrifying question: did Unha just sacrifice his own life to end this nightmare? Unha skids across the cracked asphalt, his small frame vibrating with a fierce, flickering blue mana. Around him, the Songsan Bridge has become a literal buffet line as smaller, mutated monsters crawl out of the river to join the Kraken's carnage. Honestly, seeing a 6-year-old stand his ground while everyone else is running for their lives is both heroic and completely terrifying. He grips that yellow utility knife with white knuckles, his face twisting into a mask of pure, unadulterated aggression. With a sudden burst of speed, he launches himself into the fray, his improvised blade carving a streak of neon light through the smoky air. It's a clean, surgical strike that proves he's not just flailing around, he's hunting with the precision of a master. A monster lunges with a jagged, wet claw, but Unha ducks under the strike with millimeter precision. He doesn't stop moving for a second, pivoting on his heel to drive the mana-charged blade right through the creature's armored chest. Watching him dismantle these beasts is wild. He's treating a life-or-death struggle like it's a choreographed dance he's performed 1,000 times. Another fish-faced beast roars in his path, but Unha's eyes are locked in a cold, 1,000-yard stare. He can feel it, the sharp, chilling sensation of his combat senses finally returning to his young body. That tiny utility cutter is pulsing with so much energy it looks like it's about to shatter, mirroring the lethal, legendary focus of the warrior he was before he regressed. His teeth are bared in a predatory snarl as he fully embraces the darkness of his past life. He's officially leaving the innocent child persona behind to become the undead once more. He lets out a guttural scream that pierces through the sound of the rain and the Kraken's roars, a sound so raw it makes your skin crawl. The monster in front of him is instantly shredded, torn apart by a crisscross of high-density mana slashes that move faster than the eye can follow. A massive explosion of blinding white light swallows the entire frame, leaving the bridge trembling under the sheer weight of his mana output. But man, you have to wonder, if he keeps pushing his 6-year-old heart this hard, is there even going to be anything left of him when the smoke finally clears? Unha rolls desperately beneath a snapping jaw just as the ground behind him erupts in a shower of concrete. He's moving with the honed instincts of a veteran in a child's body, barely clearing the blast zone as he launches himself into the air. Honestly, his reflexes are the only thing keeping him from becoming a stain on the asphalt right now. Mid-flight, he swings his utility cutter, a thin line of mana carving through a lunging fish beast with surgical precision. One clean, shimmering stroke splits the monster right down the middle before it can even close its teeth. It's terrifyingly efficient, and seeing a 6-year-old pull off a mid-air execution like that is just unreal. But then, a sharp clack echoes across the bridge as the fragile yellow blade finally shatters against a hide that's simply too thick. Unha doesn't even blink, he just tosses the useless plastic handle aside like it's literal trash. Talk about staying cool under pressure, most adults would be screaming, but he's already looking for his next move. He draws fresh tools from his kit, his eyes locked on the target as he blurs past rows of burning wreckage. Every step he takes cracks the pavement, blue mana practically screaming off his skin as he builds up a ridiculous amount of momentum. He isn't just running anymore, he's turning himself into a human bullet. Unha skids to a halt on top of a crushed SUV, looking like a tiny speck against the mountain of purple flesh that is the rank 3 Kraken. He readies 2 mana-charged spikes, his face a mask of pure, murderous focus just as a massive tentacle comes crashing down to pulverize everything in sight. This is the moment of truth. Can he actually stop a walking disaster with nothing but sheer willpower and a couple of sharpened toys? The bridge is literally falling apart around him, and man, the stakes couldn't possibly be higher. A violent explosion of dust and asphalt erupts as the Kraken's weight shifts, sending shockwaves through the bridge. Amidst the raining concrete, Unha isn't running away, he's diving straight into the eye of the storm, moving with a speed no 6-year-old should possess. It's honestly terrifying how he treats a falling bridge like his personal playground while everyone else is just trying to stay alive. The Kraken's massive, purple limb, covered in rows of pulsing suckers, slams into the ground with enough force to level a skyscraper. Instead of being flattened, Unha leaps into the air, his small boots finding traction right on the beast's slippery, armored hide. Seeing him actually step onto that nightmare, man, my heart is literally in my throat right now. Unha clings to the monster's side, blue mana surging through his improvised utility cutter like a jagged lightning rod. He doesn't hesitate for a single heartbeat, plunging the mana-coated blade deep into the Kraken's flesh, triggering a sickening spray of purple blood. He's really doing it, he's actually making a rank 3 disaster bleed with a common stationary tool. Gravity drags Unha down the side of the massive beast, but he uses the momentum to carve a jagged, glowing trail of destruction through its skin. The Kraken reacts in a blind rage, swinging a second, massive tentacle around to swat him like an annoying fly. He's tiny and he's fast, but the scale of this fight is just insane. One wrong move and he's nothing but a red stain on the bridge. A massive shadow looms over him as he barely rolls away from a crushing blow that would have turned him to dust. He sticks a rough landing on the crumbling bridge, but a sharp crack echoes through the air. One of his improvised blades has completely shattered against the monster's hide. Now he's down to his last weapon, and this thing hasn't even slowed down yet. Seriously, how is he supposed to survive when his only tools are literally falling apart in his hands? This isn't just a fight anymore, it's a desperate countdown to the moment he runs out of options. The hollow thud of the plastic cutter handle hitting the bridge feels like a death sentence in the middle of this carnage. But Unha doesn't even blink, instead, he begins to overflow with a violent, electric blue mana that makes his hair stand on end and his eyes glow with a predatory light. You can see it in that wild, desperate grin. That's not the look of a scared kid, that's a veteran warrior who's decided he's taking this monster down with him if he has to. The air literally vibrates as a massive, qua, sound effect tears through the scene, the Kraken's segmented body slamming into the asphalt with enough force to trigger an earthquake. Dust and debris fly everywhere as the beast lunges forward, its rows of teeth seeking to end this annoyance once and for all. It's honestly terrifying how small Unha looks compared to even one of those massive, purple segments. We see Unha's tiny silhouette framed against the smoke as he's catapulted into the air, spinning through the chaos toward the monster's weak point. He isn't trying to find a way out, he's using the monster's own momentum to get into a lethal, point-blank range. Honestly, the sheer guts it takes to jump towards something that could swallow you whole without even chewing is just insane. With a desperate scream, Unha hammers every last drop of his remaining mana into a serrated blade of light and drives it straight into the creature's skull. Above him, the Kraken's massive, suction-cupped tentacles coil and descend like the hands of a god coming down to crush an ant. This is the definition of do or die, there is no backup coming, and there's no plan B left. A blinding flash of white-hot energy erupts from the impact point, masking the entire bridge in a thick, choking cloud of smoke and mana discharge. The bridge tremors under the weight of the explosion, and for a second, it really looks like the entire structure is going to collapse into the Han River below. My heart is actually racing here. Is there even anything left of him after a blast that big? The smoke slowly clears to reveal Unha standing on trembling legs, his clothes torn and his breathing ragged, but his gaze remains unbroken. He looks up with a look that says he's just claimed his place in this world, as the title, Real Life Player, finally drops across the screen. Talk about a legendary introduction, but the real question is, how much longer can his 6-year-old body actually handle this level of power before it literally breaks apart? Massive purple segments of the Kraken crash into the bridge, sending shards of stone and steel raining down like lethal hail. Unha stands right in the center of the debris, his small hand gripping that mana-coated yellow cutter as the blue energy begins to crackle and hiss. You can see the sheer weight of the situation hitting him. This isn't a game, and the evacuation route is turning into a graveyard. It's honestly terrifying to see a child forced into a corner like this, but his eyes? They aren't the eyes of a 6-year-old, they're the eyes of a man who's already seen the end of the world. Unha's face is a mask of pure agony and focus, his teeth gritting so hard it looks like they might shatter. He launches himself into the air, a tiny blue blur weaving through a forest of descending tentacles that threaten to turn him into a red smear on the pavement. The movement is fluid and professional, but you can see the brutal toll it's taking on his underdeveloped muscles. He's moving with the instincts of a high-rank hunter, but his body is literally screaming in protest. The crazy part is, he's not even trying to run anymore, he's closing the distance. He skids across the broken asphalt, his lungs burning as he tries to find a single second to catch his breath. The Kraken doesn't give him that luxury, looming over him like a god of destruction ready to deliver the final judgment. The sheer scale of the monster compared to Unha is just, it's heart-wrenching. He looks like an ant standing before a collapsing mountain. But even as the shadow of death falls over him and the monster prepares to strike, he doesn't back down. He's waiting for the exact moment the beast commits to the kill. The monster's massive limb slams down with the force of a falling skyscraper, but Unha ignores the fear and pours every ounce of his remaining soul into one final, desperate strike. As his improvised utility blade shatters into pieces against the beast's hide, a blinding, violent eruption of blue mana explodes from his body. He's screaming, his voice cracking under the pressure of the raw, suicidal energy he's forcing through his veins. This is his final deterrent, a total gamble of his life just to push the Titan back. But as the light fades and his body finally gives out, the terrifying question remains, is there anything left of Unha to save? Blue lightning explodes from Unha's hands, lighting up the entire bridge in a violent flash. He's pouring every drop of mana into a desperate counterattack to keep the monsters at bay. Seeing a 6-year-old unleash this much power is honestly insane. A massive freight truck is sent flying as the ground shatters under the pressure. Unha stares through the smoke and fire, his eyes burning with a cold, predatory light. He's not just surviving, he's hunting. Blood drips from Unha's chin as he gasps for air, his tiny hands shaking while clutching a broken blade. Right above him, the Kraken looms like a living mountain, its purple tentacles blotting out the sky. He's completely spent, and the real nightmare is just getting started. The horizon tilts violently as Unha hits the asphalt, the world spinning out of control. Behind him, massive plumes of fire and soot swallow the bridge, casting a hellish glow over his broken body. He's just a kid in the middle of a war zone, and honestly, he looks completely spent. Unha's eyes glaze over as he realizes his limbs won't obey him anymore. He's desperately questioning if his mana core is finally empty, paralyzed while the suffocating smell of smoke fills his lungs. It's the ultimate nightmare, having the iron will to fight but a body that has simply quit on him. He tries to claw at the ground, terrified that closing his eyes means losing everything he regressed to save. But the darkness closes in anyway, and through the void, the Kraken's singular red eye stares back with cold, murderous intent. If he blacks out now, there is no coming back for any of them. The world dissolves into a pitch-black abyss, leaving only the Kraken's red eye burning through the void. Unha's consciousness is slipping, his body finally surrendering to the trauma of the bridge. Honestly, seeing that absolute darkness is terrifying, it feels like the end. A heavy thud breaks the silence as Unha's fist slams into the cracked concrete. He forces his eyes open, teeth gritted in pure agony as he gasps out, "Not yet." He's literally fighting his own nervous system to stay awake right now. His gaze falls on the blood-stained knife resting just inches from his trembling fingers. He refuses to let this second life end in another tragedy, screaming internally that he just wants to live. As a warm vision of his parents flashes before him, his desperation turns into a lethal resolve. But can a 6-year-old's body actually sustain this much mana without shattering? A glowing portrait of Unha's family flashes across the screen. He realizes he's fighting for their happiness, not just his own survival. It's a beautiful thought until a massive, purple tentacle erupts from the water and looms over the bridge. This thing is the size of a skyscraper. How is a 6-year-old supposed to stop that? Unha looks like a speck of dust in its shadow. Unha's face is covered in grime as he screams that he refuses to die here. Just as the shadow of the Kraken descends, a pair of small, trembling hands suddenly wrap around his shoulders. His older sister pulls him into a protective embrace, sobbing while she screams at the monster to stay away from her brother. It's a miracle she even reached him, but honestly, it feels like they're both about to be crushed. Can her courage actually change their fate? Unha's sister pulls him into a tight, desperate hug as they both collapse onto the cold asphalt. She's screaming at the monsters to stay away, her voice cracking with pure terror. Honestly, seeing her try to shield him like this is just heartbreaking. A blinding golden light suddenly erupts from the siblings, forming a massive, crackling sphere of mana. The pressure is so intense that the bridge beneath them begins to crater and split apart. Is this Unha's final trump card? Because if this fails, they're done. The shockwave tears outward, vaporizing the surrounding fish monsters in a split second. These things were just about to feast, and now they're literally turning into ash. Talk about a total wipeout, he's clearing the entire field in one go. A colossal pillar of light rockets into the sky, completely engulfing the Kraken's massive tentacles. The world turns white as Unha pours every last drop of his soul into this explosion. But the real question is, can a 6-year-old's body actually survive and output this insane? Unha and his sister are bathed in a blinding, golden glow. Amidst the chaos, he realizes this isn't just a simple mana burst, it's a miracle, a legendary gift that can actually rewrite the laws of the world. Seeing a 6-year-old tap into the power of the gods, that's beyond hype. Shadowy silhouettes of world-class hunters flicker through Eunha's memories. Before he regressed, he only knew 4 people who possessed a miracle, including his elite former partner, Lee Yu-young. This power is supposed to be 1 in a billion, yet here it is. A flashback shows the sister as a toddler, sparking with raw, blue electricity. Eunha realizes the truth. His sister might have been a miracle user all along. Back in the present, she pulls him into a tearful embrace inside the inferno, whispering that everything is fine now. It's an emotional peak, but with that kraken still looming over them, can they actually get out of this alive? The sister holds Eunha tightly while he looks on in total shock. As she clings to him, he realizes the impossible is happening. His gruesome wounds are actually starting to heal. Honestly, having a secret healer in the family is the ultimate plot twist right now. The massive, purple kraken roars in fury behind a brilliant dome of light. This golden barrier is the only thing standing between the siblings and certain death. It's a literal lifeline, but can a little girl really keep a disaster-class monster blocked forever? A dark, haunting silhouette is shown being torn apart by jagged red energy. We learn that miracle power comes with a devastating price. It reconstructs the world by literally consuming the user. My heart dropped here because this isn't just magic. It's a sacrifice. Eunha frantically pulls back to check if his sister is in pain. She looks him in the eye and gives him a weak, trembling smile, insisting she's fine. But look at her face, she's clearly fading, and the kraken is still looming. What happens when her mana finally hits 0? The sister's eyes grow heavy as she whispers that she's really sleepy. She finally loses the battle with exhaustion and collapses right into Eunha's arms. Seeing her go limp like that, it's honestly heartbreaking. Eunha stares down at her pale face as the realization hits that she has just enough mana left to keep her heart beating. He starts to understand that her very life force was the cost for his survival. That's a heavy burden for anyone, let alone a 6-year-old. Eunha gently lays his sister down on the cold, shattered pavement of the bridge. He whispers for her to sleep well, his small frame trembling with a new kind of resolve. But the nightmare isn't over yet. With his sister down and the kraken looming above, how is he supposed to end this? Eunha's sister lies motionless on the pavement, her hand going limp as she leaves the rest to him. He stands up, his eyes glowing with a terrifying blue mana that shouldn't belong to a child. "I'll take care of it," he says, and honestly, he sounds more like a cold-blooded killer than a little brother. Can he actually back up that talk against a disaster-class beast? A violent pillar of blue mana erupts from the boy, shattering the bridge beneath his feet. He's unleashing every drop of power he has left, letting his energy roar out to meet the monster. It's a desperate, final stand. The kraken's massive skull breaks the surface, its twin red eyes locked onto the tiny human. This thing is colossally huge, and those glowing eyes, they look ready to erase everything in sight. Eunha wears a chilling, predatory grin as he stares back at the monster. He asks if it really just identified his sister as an enemy, right before a massive tentacle swings down to crush him. He's smiling at certain death. What is he planning? A colossal tentacle whips through the air, but suddenly, a geyser of black and red mana erupts with a deafening roar. Eunha releases every ounce of his soul in one violent, desperate explosion. It's terrifying. The sheer scale of this power shouldn't belong to a 6-year-old. The massive limb is shredded into bloody chunks as blue lightning arcs across the bridge. Eunha stands as a lone sentinel over his collapsed sister, coldly declaring that the beast won't be able to touch her at all. He's become a literal wall of mana, and you can feel the weight of his resolve. Eunha's eyes burn with a predatory, sapphire light as his body overflows with raw, unstable energy. This is the gaze of a warrior who has already seen the world end once, and he's not letting history repeat itself.